Madden 23 is 2 weeks away, so today we're breaking down 23 new features coming to Madden 23, starting with FieldSENSE. This is a brand new way that Madden's going to be played throughout the whole game. EA said that they're incorporating it so that the game has a more consistent, ultra-realistic feel. This is a category that holds a lot of new features, including hit everything mechanics, skill-based passing, 360-degree cuts, and even wide receiver DB battles. The main reason that I'm excited for this feature is because it makes it very likely that this new Madden feels completely different from the past ones and not just a copy paste. First, let's talk about hit everything. I'm sure by now you heard a little something about this new mechanic, but let's go ahead and break it down. This is EA's response to the community complaining about tackling feeling too predetermined. It didn't seem like tackling was realistic in the past, and hit everything is EA's answer. They went ahead and added 3,500 new animations, and there are even clips going around showcasing exactly what some of these look like. There's 6 subcategories here, with the first being hit the pile. This simply just makes it so that other players can join in mid-tackle. And personally, I'm really looking forward to this because just because you add another body into the mix doesn't mean that the tackle will be easier to complete. If players take the wrong approach to hitting the pile, then the ball carrier can be rewarded, and this also works vice versa. With this new mechanic, we also get stand-up tackles, which means that a tackler can decide to stand up a ball carrier instead of tackling them and have another player on their team come in and create a turnover easier. And of course, with this, Madden's going to take into account the size and strength of both the ball carrier and the defensive players in play. EA also states that with the ability to interact with ongoing tackles, we're also going to gain the ability to interact with ongoing blocks. We're getting a new system of add-on blocks where the momentum of players carry into the equation, and honestly, this feature is pretty self-explanatory. All of these changes are going to be under EA's new branching and physics text, which will allow them to determine the outcome of a play. For example, whether a player should stumble or fall after a tackle attempt. EA is then going to take that information and dynamically change the game to learn that outcome. This is, of course, in an attempt to make the game as realistic as possible, and hey, personally, I'm all for it. Not only will the hit everything feature impact tackling, but it will also change mid-air contests. In the past, whenever a ball was thrown up, it seemed as only one player got their animation. Well, now that's changed. There are brand new risks and rewards for each animation, and both players get the opportunity to have them. If the player wants to be more aggressive and go for the pick, then the receiver has a pretty good chance of breaking the tackle. On the other hand, if a defensive player wants to play conservatively, they can choose to swat the ball, and they'll try to rip the ball out of the receiver's hands, making a less likely chance for the receiver to break the tackle. Overall, I think this will be a really fun addition to the game, and it will make the game less stale where everyone just yucks it up and hopes that they're the one that gets the animation. Now, while we're still on the topic of tackles, we should probably touch on tackle battles. These are a brand new minigame mode within the games that will occur whenever a user attempts to perform a conservative tackle. During this minigame, players will either mash their A or X button depending on your console to either break or make a tackle. However, during these battles, the ball carrier will be more susceptible to turnovers due to the previously touched on hit the pile mechanic. To avoid this, of course, they do have the option of protecting the ball, but they would obviously lose the tackle battle. Now, continuing on with the new FieldSENSE improvements, we have probably the biggest change coming to Madden 23's skill-based passing. There are a ton of things to break down, but essentially the way the passing works will change a bit. You're still performing the same mechanics, but now there are more on-screen elements. For starters, whenever you press a receiver icon, you'll see a power bar that shows you what type of pass you're throwing. Lob at the bottom, touch in the middle, or bullet all the way up. Then you'll see a dark gray circle around the receiver. This is just the receiver's catch radius. Then the smaller target inside of that is where the QB will throw the ball. Essentially, this is just the pass lead feature visualized. You can place that target anywhere in the gray circle or even outside of it, but you probably already know that the wide receiver will be less likely to catch the pass if it's not inside of his catch radius. So basically, passing will just become a whole lot more visualized, but I still believe that there's going to be a skill gap between players that know how to use this system and those who don't. On top of this, we're also getting a slowdown effect, which will allow players to slow down their game as they execute a pass, allowing them to set more time to set the pass strength and aim the preferred placement of the ball. I don't really know how this would work when playing against other opponents, but if I had to guess, EA will most likely just implement this feature into the single player game modes. The next portion of FieldSENSE is 360-degree cuts. This is a new feature that's going to allow the ball carriers to cut on the field anywhere they want. Currently, we're only able to choose whether the ball carrier performs a hard cut or a rounded turn, but this changes that completely. In order to perform this new feature, all you have to do is hold LT while running the ball and then just use your left stick. This will make it so that right when you see a gap, you'll be able to shift your player and hopefully secure those few extra yards or even break free for a touchdown. Another huge change that is coming with FieldSENSE is DB wide receiver battles. We're getting a ton of new added control with wide receivers, from new footwork mechanics to even new release movements that will help you attempt to catch the DB off balance. If you're able to throw the DB off balance, then you'll be more likely to come away with the ball at the end of the play. This will allow you to get creative with route running and even put some of that actual football IQ to use. To combat this, the DBs also receive new press mechanics that are going to make positioning a crucial aspect to locking up a receiving core. Overall, I think that this new feature, along with the rest of FieldSENSE, is going to really make Madden feel more realistic, and I'm super excited to learn how to master all of these new features that we're getting. Now, one feature that I've seen a ton of people reporting on is Crossplay. And just to be upfront, no, we aren't getting this feature. People thought that there was a possibility for it when FIFA 23 announced that they would be having it from the start, but this just isn't the case for the Madden franchise. On the bright side, if the FIFA crossplay runs smoothly, then there is a pretty good possibility that the feature comes to the game later in the year or even in the next title. All I know is that they better have it ready by NCAA, because I'm ready to steamroll some people on PlayStation with Coastal Carolina. If you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to like it, because I'm uploading daily Madden content for the rest of this year. Moving on to Face of the Franchise, you will now get the option to select the cornerback position for your player. I don't really know why this wasn't in the past Maddens, but I'm glad to see Madden implementing this into the game now. And just like we switched that up, now we're moving on to franchise mode. And to start, we have motivations and player tags. This is by far one of the best changes that has been added to franchise mode for as long as I can remember. This adds a realistic feel to franchise where players don't just sign for the money. I mean, I guess they kind of do, because there's a new option for players to only want to play in states that don't have income tax, but they're just not signing for those massive checks. Motivations tell the AI where players prefer to play, whether that be in the cold, in a big city, for a Super Bowl contender, or even a team that solidified themselves as one of the best of all time. So essentially the Patriots under Bill Belichick. And before y'all get mad, I'm a Jets fan. You guys should know my pain. Another cool motivation being added is close to home, where players will want to play for teams near their hometown. However, I do think that Madden just set it to where they played in college, but I'm not 100% sure. On the other hand, we have player tags, and this is only for some players, whereas motivations are for every player. These tags just tell more about what role the player has on the team. For example, there's Mentor, which someone like Aaron Rodgers will boost the XP for his position group. Another example is an award winner, which is just any player that's won an award such as Defensive Player of the Year. This tag specifically will make the players more popular among the leagues, with tons of teams wanting to sign them. And talking about signing, it's important to note one of my favorite features coming to the game: limited negotiations during free agency. I think this is a really cool feature because it makes the game more realistic. You just don't see NFL teams today going out and buying the whole league unless it's the LA Rams. So instead, Madden has made it so that you have to prioritize certain negotiations for different players, as you now have a limit. In the first week, you'll get 3 negotiations. Then in week 2, you'll get 6. And then finally in week 3, you'll go back to unlimited. Overall, I'm really happy with this change, and I think that it really improves franchise mode. Next, a super simple franchise change that's coming is a rollover cap. So whatever money you don't spend for 1 year will be rolled over to the next in franchise mode. And I know a lot of franchise players are really happy with this feature because they've been asking for it for a while. This, just like all of our previous points, just makes the game more realistic, which I'm a really big fan of. And it's not stopping there. Our next feature in new bye week scenarios is keeping with the trend, adding more realistic options for you to choose from. Now you don't have to just decide whether you want to train or not, because you have so many more choices. You'll be able to decide whether you want to spend the week rebuilding lost connections over the beginning half of your season, or even a specific position group that you want to work on. If you played Madden 22 recently, you might have already seen some of these changes being introduced, as they were added to the game this past April. Now, this next feature that we have on our list is personally up there on my list of favorites. It's updated playbooks, and basically EA's gone in and removed all the fluff from every team's playbook. They decided to make it where you'll only really run plays that the actual team would run. They seem to do this with every Madden, hence the Philly special, or even the legendary triple running back Heisman option run by the Ravens. And with this Madden, it's no different. I just hope that they added the surprise onside kick that Pat McAfee performed, but the odds are extremely unlikely because, let's face it, football hates kickers. They just hate us because they ain't us. And on top of the updated playbooks, it has also reworked low passes, wheel routes, and spin moves, 3 of the most broken things in Madden 22. For low passes, they just made it where the QB has a lower chance of completing them, because in real life, these can be very hard passes to throw. For wheel routes, they just made it so that there was just one type of them in the game, because in Madden 22, a hot routed wheel route would be pushed more to the outside of the numbers, which made it extremely broken against some coverages. Then lastly, for spin moves, they made them slower and just more realistic. Sadly, you won't be able to spin and just have 5 defenders completely miss you without even trying to go for a tackle. Now, another new feature coming to the game will be new X factors and abilities. The list for X factors includes dots, low and high point deadeye, persistent, inside shade, and outside shade. Now, the first few are self-explanatory, but we need to point out that instead of one step ahead, corners will now have either inside or outside shade. And this just means that they'll react faster to either inside routes or outside routes, but not both unless they're the best of the best. And as for abilities, there are just so many that I just can't fit them all in this video, but just know that they're getting updated and they should add to the new gameplay experience. And I know that we already did 23 features right there, but just for a little icing on the cake, the gritty celebration will be returning to the game. I'm hoping that this isn't just a dance celebration after touchdowns, but instead you can gritty on your way to the end zone, just like in the real games, but we'll just have to wait and see. But with that, I'm done.